This is a second panel, Curating China's Maritime Heritage. And I'm once again chair, but I'm also translating. I'm doing my best to translate one of the papers. This is a shorter panel. We've got two papers in this panel. So first of all, we have Dr. Libby Chan from right here, the Hong Kong Maritime Museum. So we're very happy to hear about some of the work that's going on from Libby. And that'll be followed by Dr. Liu Yuting from the China Port Museum in Ningbo, which is one of our other partner institutions in its network, and is doing some very interesting work up in Ningbo on the history of ports in China generally. So this panel is looking at how port heritage or maritime heritage is presented, curated into some very important institutions. So again, we've got through until about 12. We can be slightly flexible, but we'll keep our presentations fairly short and discussion and questions. So,
Today this topic is about the exhibition that we are planning. It was the exhibition called American Traders in China. And today we've talked about like curating Chinese maritime heritage in the Maritime Museum briefly, and then more like a focus on the exhibitions. And this exhibition that we are planning, like tentatively, will be held in at the museum here in early 2018, and hopefully that could be traveled in China. That we are like working closely, and hope it could be happened closely with Ningbo Port Museum and Art Museum in Guangzhou. And before going into further discuss about the exhibition, I'd like to look at how the curating maritime stories in Maritime Museum in Hong Kong and in some broad sense to talk about what does that mean to the visitors and to us working in the Maritime Museum. The topic that should be relevant, and then also in Hong Kong setting and or other cities or country setting that have understand that it's a unique cultural setting that is important, and just like the earlier presenters mentioned, that it's a vital living past that is important to look at the future, and about engaging the public locally and internationally, and strong curatorship stories, and then and programs, and indeed Maritime Museum, especially for port cities or port like our countries surrounded by the sea, is an essential cultural institution. And we have one of the strengths that we should proud of the Hong Kong Maritime Museum, and that's like lots of comments from the visitors indeed, and or museum professionals. They just like an Asian version of Peabody Essence Museum, but of course in terms of quantity, quantity, and that we still like a long way to go. But that's one of the strengths that we would look at, looking at the trading material and from the past and relevance to today and the future. And the curatorial approach, as we know, this is a thematic museum using multidisciplinary approach. That's thematic. Some of the storyline is chronological, and hope we can improve and more engaging storytelling, and connects to the visitors, and is articulate to different types of maritime-related issues, no matter past, current, and the future, and keep the strength and build the character. That's what we are like working hard to grow and to improve. And today the topic is Chinese maritime heritage. Is more like focused on historical part. At the same time, the museum, like how Maritime Museum embrace the ocean, our oceans in many ways, including the heritage we focus more today, and the unique maritime industry that, especially like in Hong Kong or Ningbo or other like cities or Liverpool that we just mentioned. Maritime arts, some ancient to contemporary, navigation and technology that on ADAC that we have plenty of interesting navigation equipments and a bridge simulator, and also contemporary issues like people, fishing villages, business, maritime science, etc. And trade and commerce like Hong Kong that's driven by trade and economy, and also trade as we know 19% of trading is through the sea. And the Maritime Museum located in Hong Kong, how the maritime stories in Hong Kong links to the world, just like archaeological that Rick just mentioned, that very interesting projects they're doing, and cultural, and like the local stories, the Jumbo Zai, the pirates, and then the now it's a hit topic, indeed not just because it is a hot topic, but it is very meaningful how we view the world through Belt and Road to Maritime Silk Road, to see the connection between different like countries and their relationship. So today I focus more on the exhibition. Sorry, just have a Chinese version is a dragon and eagle American traders in China. The collections basically from several museums, and that this idea is built 2 years ago. That was a show. It's more like focused on archive material in Baker Library in Harvard. And they have a small show using Hurt and Company as a case study to be a very interesting show. And that group of information is so important that many important trading companies' documents now housed in the States. So we keep developing, and until now, up to now, we would like to expand the scope and expand the type of material we are using. The collections basically from the Hong Kong Maritime Museum and Peabody Museum, Baker Library, the mostly archive, Guangzhou Museum, and other like collaborative museums in China, and Anthony Hardy's collection, and some private collections as well. Introduction. The idea of early Sino trade, American trade, that as we all like familiar with the story of Empress of China, Canton started in 1784, and this is kind of marked the beginning. And the benefits of trade and curiosity about Far East, like Oriental, were contributing factors to American mercantile journeys to China. And this show, we didn't think of political thing that was happening currently, but we believe that since the early China-American trade is a very like friendly, multi-beneficial way when we look back to the history. So it could be very relevant to look at today what's happening currently. New president, blah blah blah. But we won't cover it, and we only show the facts and then share the results to the visitors. And these would bring, when we look at the trade, Sino-American trade, to bring how different types of significance, economic, diplomatic, art, cultural, religious, social, scientific, technological enrichment to both sides. That's the aim we want to bring. So that's the contemporary art about the Empress of China. And you can see this is the plate that you see the dragon, the yellow flag with the dragon, just like a snack. And here's a dragon, and then American flag that was made in Canton. So by showcasing goods that was traded, like arts, maps, document manuscript, and like some financial business records that have never been publicly displayed before. This exhibition will trace the footprint of American merchants in different treaty ports. So you can see here different types of treaty ports and those port cities, and one like Canton and Wombo, and in Shanghai, Hong Kong, and one that we cannot now identify, but a very interesting the port with the American ships anchored right there. The exhibition is divided across 5 themes. First, Chinese dreams in America. In the early 18th century, the prospect of Canton attracted numbers of talented people in New England to seek opportunities in China. There was a trend in New England for those seafarers want to explore new opportunities. By showcasing rare records and I just mentioned, we would like to shed light on several narratives, including the U.S. social and economic difficulties during early Sino-American trade, and the role of trading goods such as American ginseng and the fur and silver, how it was traded in China and exchange and Chinese tea, exchange for Chinese tea, silk, porcelain, later like opium, the role of opium, and the impact of enlightenment in Europe on the U.S. foreign trade, and how different types of Chinese agriculture, craftsmanship, architecture, drawing, and pottery, those can be found and viewed in Chinese export materials that to the state that could have interaction with the industrial revolution in the States. So you can see the coolie, Selena just mentioned earlier, and there's more than 1,000 years ago photo. They are waiting to send those package to on board. And very lucky we just purchased a very good deal for this spoon where Declaration of Independence spoon showing the founding fathers at the signing in Independence Hall. We just secured this acquisition. And just supposing this big would be like that big bowl that's collected in Guangzhou Museum. To look at, they are both ordered in Canton, and back to the days, there's 2 types of objects, materials would be sent to the States, but earlier to Europe. And that would be, one would be custom designed goods, the other type would be really oriental types of materials. So these 2 is indeed is custom made materials, and why they were ordered in Canton, because the cost is much lower when they can ordered in Canton, custom made, just like one big bowl with the Philadelphia Hospital, the bowl, and indeed suppose it was sent, it was ordered in England, but the price is too high, so it's much cheaper to order in Canton. That's why there's a drive that kind of export goods. And the other materials like the also guli, they are having packing the trash, and 2 knotting figures that's housed in Peabody Museum that we hope we can borrow, and really realistic, depicted in a realistic way to capture the work of coolie, and especially important that's before the popularity of photography, so that they serve the purpose when those traders came back home in the States and share with their friends and family what they witnessed and what their business work was. And those silk kept very well. Those are made in Canton. This type of black type is a typical Cantonese type of silk. It's very, very soft, and then it's suitable to wear especially in summertime. So, and some more photos can see even both women helping, and some men working, the coolie working. And the other part is the technology, because the trading, that time and money is so important. So that helps to develop a faster transportation that how to develop a type of ship, T-cube clipper, is especially fast to facilitate the transportation. So like a ship model, Friends of Salem, and some drawings and some technical drawings, and also like this is a long-term loan from Peabody Assets and the Boston ships in Hong Kong Harbor. And other types, as I mentioned, is a custom-made type, like a set of these teacup and saucers. The customer could be anyone, but there's a name, Alicia, like written on each of the bowl as a birthday gift. So it's now at Peabody Assets Museum. So that is very interesting to see this kind of souvenir. If I want to buy a gift from China back home, and then I ordered special gift for their beloved ones. And also this is another example. Also, sorry, it's a bit blurred. There's a character Philadelphia right there. So it's how it's now collected in Philadelphia Museum of Art. That really is a custom-made materials. And one event we need to pay attention is the Expo in 1876. That is a very interesting and important Expo that can show to show lots officially to the States and the world. It's a world expo in Pennsylvania, and in this expo there's different countries, and like Japan and like Europe in different countries, and China has a section. It's not big, so okay. That's I have to be fast. One acquisition that's thanks for that's a theory Annie shared earlier about could be an example from an expo that tracked the document. Indeed, it did mention that in this book, it did mention that consonate, a group of rare consonate materials was showed in this expo, and they are very rare, and it put a section of it. So the next step that this is our collection that we estimate it could be late Qing to early 20th century. We estimate, so the next step that we need to track the documents with the photography, because the written documents mentioned that is a group of Ilemo consonate materials shown there, and with the help of the photography that housed in the Peabody Assets Museum, that we could further prove that possibly could be part of the exhibits during the World Expo. And the second part would be the American traders firm in China that several important companies like Pickens and Company, Russell's and Company, Hurt and Company, and they also got office in Hong Kong, in somewhere in Canton, Shanghai, that through the traveling exhibitions in different stops, some highlights of the companies can be shown. Like in Hong Kong, one example is Hurt Company, and that's the residence of the Hurt and Company. This is from the other view. So we got John Thompson photos showing the other side, looking at the Hurt and Company as well. And some material like telegrams, and then the material they order like wine. And the Forbes and Companies, the family from the Forbes, and there's the drawing they drew, the children, the kid drew when they're based in Hong Kong. The third session would be focusing more on comprador, the role of comprador and finance. And the role of comprador is very interesting because they serve an agent between foreign merchants and Chinese officials, and because of the language, the skills of trade that is play a very important role. So we will have a focus on it, and also that the development of the bank and finance system that first starting from the there's no bank in mid-19th century, no official bank, but in other sense they have Chinese financial institution called Powerhouse or Qianzhuang or foreign trade firms. So we will look into it as well. And some like horn merchants, we are also looking at by using the art, the visual material, like hope we can secure this as from Peabody Essence. It's a life-size figure, so possibly copied from the clay origin, and the portrait of Ho Hua, and there's a bowl presented by Ping Hua, the home merchants, to a trader, to American trader, and there's indeed this very nice portrait with the hair. There's a Bentley's collection and opium sets and some opium documents as well. So about for impression of China, we are looking at two ways: Chinese style in the States and how the States, how the U.S. Influence the Chinese development. We are using different types of goods, materials, and also documents, and such as famous painter, American painter Whistler, and how Oriental taste and especially Chinese taste helped him to develop his art. And so you can see the lady dressing like sort of like Cantonese cloth with Japanese style, holding possibly Kansi type of vest, and also during the like the expo I just mentioned, there's different types of Chinese material like pagoda, like Chinese furniture. They will show in the expo, so that the Americans back to the days, they got the chance to see many types of material, Chinese export material. At the same time, in New England, that middle class or about they are able to afford the export material from China, like the porcelain they can use in living room, and the ones they are richer, they can paper the house. If not, they might purchase a painting, or they bought the export material. So that's in that background, even it it influenced the development of American furniture. Just like this is exported from Canton, but the initial, there's two initial right here. This very interesting case study about Wan Hing Company, silver company in Hong Kong, based in Hong Kong, and he's in Queen's Road, and they are selling different types of silver, like silver and gold. And this trophy, usually the quote mentioned that that's for local consumption. But at the same time, like this example, that indeed is a special mask for retail through Tiffany in United States. So I think I on the time's up. That very quick to look at the Eastern expansion of Western idea, especially medicine, technology, and like shipbuilding. Yeah. So there's some example that the medicine used on an American ship, and that in the middle there's Dr. Peter Baker. He is indeed and he's with his student operating patients that you can see that Western medicine that have an impact in China. And Shan Yat-sen, he indeed was, when he's 18 years old, he indeed baptized in Hong Kong and in the American Ministry China Congregation Church, and that become his whole lives involvement in the revolution, and he's still like having that kind of religious mindset. And lastly, romance in China. That's also quite interesting session, looking at women's what's their role, because when it was in Canton trade, women is limited. Foreign women, they cannot stay in Canton. And one lady, Harriet Low, she even dressed up like a man and then went to Canton to have parties. So we are looking at several ladies to review the stories about American trade, and some boats lady and tanker woman. So that's the follow-ups, and also some related activities and catalogs will be developed. So time's up. So thanks for listening.
So, thank you very much. Now we've got Dr. Liu. I'm going to sit over here so I can watch. I'll grab a microphone. You need a microphone.
不好意思啊，我现在要用中文来发言，请那个周总来帮我来翻译一下。
So the presentation will be in Chinese. I'll try my best to translate as we go through with the aid of the slides.
各位专家、学者、朋友们，大家上午好，我是宁波中口港口博物馆的刘玉婷，非常荣幸有机会能够站在这里和大家交流有关中国海事遗产展览策划的这么一个议题。今天呢，我来谈谈我们馆，也就是中国港口博物馆它的一个核心的基本陈列——港通天下中国港口历史陈列。
So, Dr. Liu was just saying, thank you. Very honoured to be here to talk about and to have a dialogue with people on issues of maritime heritage and history. And the presentation today is to present the work of the China Port Museum.
我们宁波中国港口博物馆呢，是位于中国大陆浙江省宁波市北仑区一个春晓的滨海新城。它的建筑面积呢是40978平方米。2014年10月份建成开馆，开馆有2年多了。是中国国内呢现在唯一一家以港口为主题的大型的专题性的国字号博物馆。
So the China Port Museum is located in Ningbo, just near Ningbo Port in Zhejiang Province. It's the only port-themed national museum in China, opened in 2014, and it covers a large area and has a very unique architecture which gives some figures in it.
我们知道啊，中国发展的历史长河当中，港口它是作为一个综合体，在促进贸易经济、推动国家发展、加强文化交流等方面是起到了不可忽视的作用。宁波中国港口博物馆呢，在建馆最开始就是想要来诠释中国港口它既灿烂辉煌又跌宕起伏的发展历程，而且也想展示港口在经济社会中它的一个重要的地位和作用。
So the main purpose of the Port Museum is to look at the role of ports in the economic development and social development of China and some related issues.
我们宁波中国港口博物馆在立项阶段呢，开始酝酿策划一个既能够彰显港口文化主题，又能够契合博物馆它的使命和学术研究水平的一个这样的主题展览。所以呢，我们策划了一个港通天下中国港口历史陈列的一个展览。
Okay, so one of their permanent exhibits is this Gang Tong Tian Xia, so ports all around the world, and the history of the Chinese ports. And so this is separated into, it's got 3 main themes. One is ports in antiquity, modern ports, and contemporary ports. So it looks at various aspects of the development of ports throughout China.
我们的展厅是有2600平方米，展现的是748米 总共有1685件的文物和其他的展品相结合，向观众讲述的是中国7000年的中国港口的历史。
Okay, I have to remember. Can you go back over this slide? I can't remember. Okay, so the exhibition space is 2,600 square meters, and they have, in terms of exhibit routes, there's 748 meters of those. There are the holdings or the actual exhibits, 1,685 of those actual things, and it goes over 7,000 years of port history in China.
我下面首先来介绍一下我们这个馆的这个展览的核心理念。我们这个展览想要说什么？
So this is talking about what they're actually aiming to do, their aims and objectives for the actual exhibits.
那港口呢，它作为一个设置，它作为一个设施，它是静态的，但是呢，它又作为社会发展的这个产物呢，它又是动态的。想要准确的来表现港口，就必须得突破港口历史，它是港口设施技术历史这样的一个狭隘的概念。
Okay, so they looking at the interaction between ports, cities, and society, and looking at the role, the links between ports and science, culture, and the military, the economy, and politics as well.
所以呢，我们是以港口技术本身的演变为主线，旁及到了港口的政治、军事、经济、文化和科技发展。
Yeah, that's what I just said. Sorry, I was reading off the slide. It's okay. I'm kind of abridging my.
我们的核心理念呢，就是注重港口与社会的互动，把港口从单纯的静态的物升华到动态的文化现象，从而揭示港口在促进贸易经济、推动文明交流、加强内外联系、助力国家发展等方面发挥的巨大的作用。
So this is she's describing how they're looking at the links between ports and various aspects. So it started with politics and society, it's just ports and culture, ports and military, just before, and looking at how ports have influenced and been influenced by each of these kind of things.
下面谈完理念以后，我们再来谈具体我们展示了什么内容。
So this is talking about the contents of the exhibits, the exhibitions.
我们认为啊，港口与社会的互动，就是从港口到所在城市，然后再到所在的地区，这样一个由点到面扩散的一个过程。因此呢，我们从最基本的点入手，把港城互动，就港口与城市的互动，作为我们展示理念的一个主要的手段。在具体港口的选择上面呢，我们首先第一个考虑的是尊重事实，充分考虑时代的特色。同时呢，要注意港口地域的特征和类型的平衡。
Okay, so they look at the links between cities and ports, and they do this based on historical fact and historical relics as well, and actual items or relics.
那我们以隋唐五代时期为例，就是在这一个单元里面，隋唐五代时期我们是如何来展示这个陈列的？我们选定的港口有这么几个：洛阳港、登州港、扬州港和广州港。
So here in one section they're looking at Sui and Tang dynasties, and they chosen 4 specific ports that they explored. And so Loyang Port, Yangzhou, Dengzhou, and Guangzhou.
洛阳港呢，它着重的展示的就是作为运河中枢港和连接海陆丝路中心港的这么一个重要的作用。
The Loyang is important because it was on the Grand Canal, right? And there's also the maritime Silk Road. Yeah, so it's an important transshipment hub.
扬州港呢，它表现的是港口影响之下，商业和手工业发展，还有对外文化交流，以及由此带来的城市布局的变化，表现的是社会影响下港口建造技术的进步。
Okay, so Yangzhou it's more of a commercial port, and it's also a port which has links with the outside world. So it's looking at the links between ports and commerce, the rest of the world.
广州港呢，我们重点突出的是世博史的一个设立。
Guangzhou.
世博史就是当时管理港口的一个机构，世博史。
Oh, okay, so Maritime Institute. Okay, so Guangzhou is looking at, I see, the role of a particular institution, which is like the official office of maritime affairs, basically.
在登州港呢，突出的就是我们中国与日本和高丽交流通道的这么一个作用。
Okay. So Dengzhou is looking at links between China and Japan and Korea.
这样呢，我们第3点来看一下展品，我们用了哪些展品？
So here we're looking at the actual items in these exhibitions.
我们呢，为了避免在展陈当中千城一面，就是每个城市都一模一样，所以我们选择了突出优势的这么一个原则，来选择有针对性、有说服力的文物来进行展示。
Okay, so they've chosen specific items to kind of relate to each of these different parts of the exhibition.
就比如说，我们用了鄂军起舟节左边的这个鄂军起舟节来表现春秋时期商业航运的发展和对港口的促进。
Okay, so this Erjuqi is which is used to look at the spring and autumn period commercial shipping.
右边的这个是与人进度文同否，它来表现的是战国时期造船航海技术的发展，佐证港口的相对发达。
Motifs are on the boat with different people sitting on boats that show the early shipping stories in Warren State.
上面这一组呢是扬州出土的铜镜。
Also, these are Yangzhou produced coins from the mirror.铜镜, sorry. Okay, yeah, bronze mirrors from the different hangings.
下面这一组呢是扬州出土的不同窑口的瓷器。
This is like porcelain or clay. 长沙。
不光光是长沙窑，其他的窑口也有的。通过铜镜和瓷器来表现这个扬州，扬州当时是一个铜镜的制造的一个基地，同时呢，它也是陶瓷的一个集散地，就是陶瓷在这边交易一个贸易的地方。
Okay, so they use this to show Yangzhou is an important place for export porcelain.
左边的这个是南宋时期的一个金叶子，右边的话是一个船形的银锭，反映的是唐代广州和宋代杭州两地的城市贸易繁荣的一个景象。
So the top one is actually it's gold paper. It's gold. Gold sheets, yeah. The other one's from the Tang Dynasty. It's like a silver ingot. Okay, right.
然后在近代部分呢，我们用的是近代的是，左边这个是德国的石座钟，右边的话是近代灯塔式的一个洋钟，就是也是都是跟港口非常密切相关的一些文物，来表现港口对近代人们生活的一个深刻的影响。
So this is looking at the influence of ports on modern society and modern culture. So that's a clock from Germany from the 1830s. This is a Yangzhou is a clock that's made in the shape of a lighthouse.
在我们这个展览当中呢，总共用的文物是1685件，但是除了文物之外呢，还有许多的710件的，就是不同的辅助展品，就比如说是绘画啦、场景啦、沙盘啦、饰品啊等等，与文物相结合，然后最后组成了这个展览。
So when we're talking about the numbers of actual things in the exhibition, it's not purely like wenwu, like relics. They also have photographs and paintings, and sculptures, and various other types of items that are used in the exhibits.
比如说这个场景是在我们进展厅原始社会时期，一些渔猎的工具，还有水生动植物的标本，和我们的这个原始港点的复原场景相结合，表现的是原始港点促进滨水聚落的一个发展。
So this is when you first enter the exhibition. Actually, you see this is diorama type thing of the Stone Age port. Yeah, is that right? And they've got some items that they've found from digs, but they've also got some things where they've kind of recreated the port of the sense of what it was like at that time.
然后上面的话是外来的宗教石刻，远处的可以看到外来的宗教石刻和我们外贸的一个陶瓷品的一个组合的展示，表明的是泉州时期的宋元时期泉州港的一个发达。
So next they have an exhibition of Quanzhou, which is a very important port during the Song Dynasty, and they have a number of items that were from Quanzhou.
这个场景呢是关于郑和下西洋的一个场景，它表现的是不光光是郑和下来西洋，同时的话是海运仓、宝船厂的一些遗址的文物，也使得我们当时的中国已经具备了港仓船厂一个配套的完备的一个港口体系。
So this is looking at Zheng He and his Ming Dynasty voyages, maritime voyages that he made, and so they've used some actual items that were left over from some of the treasure boats, and as well as other related things from that period.
这个是近代上海的一个场景。
So this is a modern Shanghai, a recreation of modern Shanghai.
我们来看一下这个展览的形式。
So this is looking at the style, the way in which they exhibit some of these things.
我们的形式的话，它是以形式设计服务内容、提升内容，它作为一个设计的原则，把我们的这个展览分为3个部分。红色的部分是我们古代港口的部分，黄色的部分呢是近代港口的部分，蓝色的部分是现代港口的部分。
Okay, so they separate the exhibit into the red section, which is like antiquity or ancient ports. The yellow is what's this?
Presentation. Today, yes, we will be talking about community engagement. I'm from Hong Kong Underwater Heritage Group. Yes, we collaborate with Hong Kong Maritime Museum for some projects in Hong Kong. Okay, and we will talk about the essential driving force for sustainable marine heritage development in Hong Kong. Hong Kong's maritime history. The history, we have about 200 archaeological sites, some dating back to more than 7,000 years, and some lithic sites and rock carvings. Maritime trade and transport. We have strategic transport and military outposts being at the mouth of Pearl River. And connecting two great transportation networks, we are near the Pearl River and also the one of the port of the Maritime Silk Road. About the maritime industry, we have a lot of different industry in Hong Kong. We have the fishing, the sword making, line making, the line perm, and pearl hunting, but no more maybe, and farming, and shipping, shipbuilding and repairs. And we have a very special history about the piracy and wars, like smuggling and inevitable fighting wrecks, something like this. And recruitment introduced Navy, port and coastal defense. And we also have some cultural custom and folklores. Over 90 Tin Hau Temple in Hong Kong, and also hosting different Chinese god. And nowadays we still celebrate of all this sea god. This is one of the festival in Taiwan about the Tin Hau Festival. reaching out to the community. We have the Lord Wilson Heritage Trust, and we have documenting underwater heritage in Hong Kong, and we have about 200 something, about approximately 300 site records in our database, and we publish the database in our website. Here is our website, hkuhgroup.com. And we also conduct the underwater archaeology course under the Nautical Archaeological Society, which is the underwater archaeology course. We have the NAS intro, NAS 1, 2, and 3 course. Organized classes in Hong Kong for local divers or publics. And we also promote this to the divers community. We try to let them know more about how to report of all these underwater heritage to us or the government, and let more people get aware of this, because not many people know when there is something underwater. And we collaborate with Hong Kong Maritime Museum for regular and extensive collaborations, like some projects, and we have facilities and events, and it's upcoming. There is a big conference in this year, 2017. Here is some of the site or projects we have. For example, the Port Island in Saigon, Kowloon. There is a stone line, a pair of stone line underwater, and Palm Island with ceramics. And this year we raised the stone anchor in High Island, and one of the cannons in Vessel Island. And we also received some more information from local publics or divers or fishermen or some villages about. One of it is about a Chungbuzai war site near Dongchong, but we are not very sure about the exact location. We will talk about it with villages and get some more oral history from them and see what we can do with that. Here is one of the sites at Kowloon. We found the stone lion. It is reported by a diver instructor, Mr. Lee, and he took us there, and there is 2 stone lions underwater. Here's the photos. And we also, after we go there and see the stone lion underwater, we go to see the village chief and ask them why there is a stone lion underwater, and he told us a very good story about why the stone lion is living underwater, not on the land. He told us it used to be a stone lion outside a Tinhao temple at a village, but there's some story about some backstory about the limestone, the stone lion, and then he just threw it away, dumped it to the water, and they bring a new one to bring good luck to their village. Here's another site at Port Island. We found some ceramics underwater, and this also reported by another divers because they are doing dive training at that island. They found something special there, but at the very first time they didn't know what to do with that and just leave it there. And after sometimes he know we are doing some underwater heritage stuff in Hong Kong, and then so he told us and took us there. There is another site at Palm Island, and reported by Mr. Ma, and also took us there, and we have extensive projects and record more than 300 artifacts, mainly ceramics. And we cover 21 of them, and doing the proper desalination and conservation treatment. There's another way in Kaosai Chow, and there is a local museum, this Mr. Richard, And he took us there, and he had some special equipment on his boat, and like the Iceland sauna and underwater owl wheel, so that we can examine or investigate of the wreck. And we found that it's not very historical significance because it's not a modern wreck. But it is a good start that we can explore more wreck. And we have reported this to the Marine Department and update the database because the Marine Department has a very extensive database of the wreck. And we have reported to the AMO, the Lord Wilson pictures and compiled the books, and the name is Treasures of the Deep, and published by Maritime Museum here. We got one of it in here, if you like. Here is another project we just finished in this summer. And Maxwell Island, there's 2 cannons there, and we raised one of it, and most of us working on projects attend the last course. And these 2 cannons reported by Mr. Mann. He's the underwater photographer. He knows these 2 cannons for a long time, maybe more than 10 years. But he can do nothing about this, but only can visit it maybe once a year or twice a year. And once he has the last course, and he took us there. And yes, we work together with the museum and try to raise one of it. And he took 2 days to relocate this site. And one of the cannons raised and now is conserved in the museum here. Is the working of Bill and one of the projects. The cannon site we can do a quick look at this. Here. You can see the water is a little bit bluish. It's like what we see. Most of the time is the water visibility is not so good. So we usually work in this kind of water in Hong Kong. There is still sometimes in Hong Kong we have good visibility underwater, but usually we only have maybe 1 or 2 meters visibility in Hong Kong. We're working at the cannon, and there is heavy concretion because the 2 cannons sticking together and also sticking to the rocks there. So this is now trying to chisel it and separate before we raise it. We also use a car jet to check it at one side, and so that we try to break it because the concretion is like approximately 1 inch. This cannon is resting at around 15 meters underwater, and it's resting at the ledge on the rock side. And we do have some research in closed area or the area nearby, but the visibility is not very good because the bottom and the seabed is approximately 20 meters. So we go down and take a look of this, and we only can see a little bit of it. So we will do some more research in this area. We raise it, and we have the sponsor from the Hong Kong Maritime Museum for this project, and that's why we have it. We hope to have this cannons conserved by the conservators from the museum, and hope the cannons can be sold to the public, and hope these projects can raise more awareness of publics and the divers to tell them when they found anything special, is good to how to report to the government or other organization or the museum to see how we work with it. There's another videos that the conservators from the museum working on the cannons. It's a time lapse. Yeah. It takes 2 days, more than maybe yes, approximately 2 days to remove the concretion. And after removing the concretion, they found something special, a special marking on the cannon, and they are still researching on the marking and see whether this is where it made or where it's come from. Is another artifact that we found in Hong Kong waters this summer. It is a stone anchor stock. This is found by when we doing another project in 2014 nearby, and we're doing some check dive nearby, and Dr. Bill found this special stone. The shape is very special. He recognized this is maybe an anchor stock similar to the one at Nanhai No. 1, but this is a smaller size. This is the anchor stock after we raise it, and it's now conserved in the Maritime Museum. This is at the pictures at the bottom side. It is the similar anchor stock in Quanzhou. It's similar to those style, and but the size may be different because it may be different size of ship. Here is another report from villages in Dongchong. He said probably Hong Kong, outside Dongchong, between there may be a war site about the war between the Zhang and one of the pilots in Hong Kong when they war with the Qingdansi Navy or the government. He have sent us some information about the GPS of the war site, and we may talk to him again and see whether we have more information. Here we talk about the government involvement. We know there's a strong involvement from China government. They have a lot of projects and leading from the China government, and they have put a lot of funding on it. And Taiwan, they just passed a legislation in December 2015, and they are still finding more community engagement with the government. In the UK, they have a very good policy and good funding on that. For example, they adopt a WEC also the Mary Rose, a very famous ship and museum in the UK. In Australia, they have a well-developed program like the Pandora and some other site that is statewide community activities. In Hong Kong, we have a lot of different movement in land, or the land archaeology, or the heritage building in Hong Kong. But they have not much funding or work on underwater archaeology. And also the Tamil Web, they have a different treatment for the underwater heritage site. And they still was talking about this famous wreck in Hong Kong. They haven't decided what to do with that, or they still haven't put much information out to the public. We're still waiting for that. Soon, we hope the government will involve more about the second policy and program for taking care about the underwater technology in Hong Kong, and consider that have more energizing and mobilizing the community for the ownership or the participation in this program, or consider developing commercial interests for sustainable development, like more company or commercial involvement in this project, and need to conduct a territory-wide survey of the underwater cultural heritage site in Hong Kong. Because at this moment we only have our own database in Hong Kong, but we don't have the full survey on this site in Hong Kong water at this moment. So we hope we can do it soon and move. Thank you.
So as I said at the beginning, what we're going to do is to keep the question and answers until all three of the panelists are presented, because they're quite short presentations today. So in that way we can maybe have some interactive questions too. So the next speaker I'm going to hand over to is Dr. Maurizio Marinelli from Sussex University, talking about Hong Kong's living heritage, the role of street markets in the construction of great Britain.
Jeremy and John for inviting me here, and thanks to all of you for being here today. I'm writing a book on street markets in Hong Kong, and I'm looking at street markets as an example of living heritage, which is one of the concepts that I will try to emphasize in this talk. I won't read the paper because it's too long, and 15 minutes I think is better to give you an idea of what I'm working on, and maybe if I have enough time to focus more specifically on one of the markets, one of the marketplaces I'm looking at. One of the issues, some of you might be familiar with the film 10 Years, this dystopian film of an hypothetic Hong Kong in 2025. The last segment, the fifth segment, is entitled Local Egg, or Undedang or Bendidang in Mandarin, Cantonese Undedang in Mandarin, Bendidang. And I think it's a very interesting example somehow of how this discourse on heritage is really getting to the local element, this idea of MD. In particular, this, if you haven't seen the film, if you haven't seen the segment, is really looking at, I mean, it starts with a sort of piece of news that is projected in 2025, saying that the last poultry farm in Hong Kong would be shut down in 2025, with the consequence that there would be no more local poultry products in Hong Kong. And the grocery store owner Sam is criticized in the segment by sort of Red Guard-style children behaving as secret police for billing his eggs as local in his store. What interests me here, there have been a lot of readings, kind of political, cultural, political, social political readings of this microfilm. In particular, one of the most popular readings is that the this kind of segment is paying homage to the manifesto by Haruki Murakami about the egg that breaks against the high wall, a sort of metaphor of the individual clashing with the system. But what interests me here in particular is this idea that we have in a film that was as controversial as 10 Years. Also this element of the stall vendor, of the shop operator, that is really trying to preserve the local dimension of his business as a fundamental part of his identity. There has been another interesting documentary, just to give you a flavor of the kind of visual, if you want, representation of street markets that has come out in November 2016, and this documentary is on the Shanshui-Po marketplace, and it was directed by another filmmaker who was involved in the 10 Years, Jebus Ao. And in the Shanshui-Po marketplace, which is another very interesting marketplace in Hong Kong, Jebus Ao is looking at a sort of micro story. It's entitled in English Cockroach, and you can find it on YouTube. And it's basically a sort of micro story of love, if you want, in the Shanshui-Po market area. But it's really addressing the issue of the relationship between the individual and the collective space of the market, which is probably what interests me the most. I mean, this idea of street markets as local places that are really representative of a sort of collective identity in the making, I call it in my work. So they are physical spaces, but they're also, of course, socio-economic spaces, and they are spaces that are deeply rooted in the history of Hong Kong, the street markets. So my work on the street markets is really trying to probably to engage with one of the most evident, if you want, contradictions when we look at Hong Kong. I mean, we have Hong Kong probably also viewing from the other side, not from this side, the kind of verticality of Hong Kong, okay? And then the street markets operate on a transversal or horizontal level and much more stratified. So when we look at the urban fabric of Hong Kong, we really see this sort of contrast between this sort of verticality, this kind of imagery of economic prosperity of Hong Kong, and then the level of, as I said, I mean, of horizontality, the kind of everyday life of the citizen, what some geographers like Andy Merrifield taking over from Harvey and other scholars are defining the practices of everyday life, the central idea of the practice of everyday life. And so I think that the work on the street markets allows us really to engage with the cityscape and also with the timescape of Hong Kong in a way that is probably much more interesting, I think. This is what I argue in my work, from the point of view of the politics of the encounter and the right to the city, this kind of literature that many scholars have engaged with. So the kind of looking at the street markets, I think, allows us to look at the idea of the city for the people in a kind of, if you want, in a kind of antagonism, more kind of hegemonic logic of the city for profit. And it's really allowing us to go beyond the idea of Hong Kong, or the idea of any city. I live in London, and London is also a city where there is a very dominant ideology of economic prosperity. And the street markets, I think, allow us to look at the elements of sustainability, elements of social prosperity, elements of living heritage. And this is what I want to come to in a few minutes in my work. And so I'm looking really at street markets as laboratories of collective experiences of public space, as examples of living heritage, and here I redefine in my work the kind of UNESCO, kind of very binary and dichotomic idea of living heritage as part of the, according to the UNESCO conceptual framework of the intangible cultural heritage. And I really think that the street markets allow us to think of living heritage as something much more material, much more embodied in the social relationships and the cultural practices that become much more meaningful in the street markets because of the coexistence of different generational groups, different central and western Italy in particular, there are both expatriates and local residents into the street markets. And so in this sense, I think that the street markets allows us really to redefine the idea of living heritage in a much more, I call it socially and culturally embodied kind of significance, in the sense of something much more vibrant, something much more alive than this idea of living heritage as intangible. Then the third element I'm looking at in my work is really if we can look at street markets as spaces of social inclusion. There has been a lot of work on street markets in other parts of the world. In particular, Sophie Watson, an urban sociologist, has done a lot of work on street markets in London, and she's using this definition of street markets where people, I'm trying to find the quote, of course, in the paper, she's using this definition of rubbing along. When you go to the street market, you are in contact. There is a physical contact with other people, and there is also sort of a kind of sensorial contact that you can experience in that particular space. And the fourth element that I'm looking at is street markets as testing ground for bottom-up practices of democratization, looking specifically at the work that community concern groups have done in Hong Kong, in central western district, but also in Shashwiko and in other parts of Kowloon, vis-a-vis the projects of gentrification and urban renewal that have been led by the Land Development Corporation first and by the Urban Renewal Authority when the URA, the Urban Renewal Authority, took over from the MDC, from the previous Land Development Corporation. So the idea here is really to study street markets and the Graham Street Market that I'd like to say a few words about is really an example of a market that has existed in Hong Kong for a very long time. It's one of the oldest markets in Hong Kong. Some sources say 150 years old. Other sources are actually trying to define the exact time when the Graham Street Market started, which could go back to 1841, when we had the street hawkers operating in this area, and the market was known as the Middle Bazaar. It's also very interesting, this market in particular from the point of view of the kind of colonial global dimension of Hong Kong, because in the colonial time there was a sort of racial segregation of the society, and so the Chinese were only allowed to live in the western part of what was then called Victoria City, centered in the present-day Central, and extending from today's Kennedy Town, Shenton Shui, Sanlitun, to present-day Wan Chai. And so the sort of Chinatown west of the CBD was filled with street markets, and the Grand, and we have to say Grand and Peel Street area became one of the first settlement sites for the Chinese community, and it was also the trading center for Parsi and Indian merchants. But then when we look at the history of street markets, this is the area that I'm referring to. Many of you are familiar with the Grand Street Market. It's really on the way from Hong Kong, when somebody comes, I don't know if you have from outside and you come to the airport, from Hong Kong station moving up to the mid-level along the escalators. There is this kind of area that is surrounded basically by Peel Street, Graham Street, and Gage Street, Wellington Street, and Cochrane Street, Studley Street, and Kinsale Lane in the central area, where there have been since 1841 many street hawkers and stall vendors there. Something that we have to take into consideration when we look at, these are just pictures of the market in the past and the market in the present. Something that we have to take into consideration when we look at street markets is that the problem of the licenses, and I'm not getting into this because it's a very complicated issue, but basically in a nutshell, the first licenses for street vendors were formally issued in were formally issued up to the, basically up to 1973 is when the British colonial government policy decided to issue licenses for new applications. And throughout the 1980s and 1990s, the street hawkers continue to operate alongside indoor retail vendors or shop vendors and other more formal stores in this area. And the situation has become progressively complicated because many of these many street hawkers became very old, and they put an assistant on the license who is actually the person who operates. So even today, with all the transformation that occurred in the Graham Street area, we can still see sometimes a very old person in the stall who is there because it's the person with the license, but then there is an assistant who is actually operating the store. So this has really complicated the situation in Graham Street, in Shanxuikou, in many markets, in terms of the urban regeneration. So when the Urban Renewal Authority decides to regenerate the area and they start counting how many street hawkers are actually legal vendors, it becomes very complicated to really come down to the numbers of who is legal in this situation. What has been quite interesting, in my opinion, with the Graham Street market is how the community concern groups, the Central and Western District community concern groups, started framing really a discourse of living heritage vis-à-vis the project of the Urban Renewal Authority of regenerating this market. So this is just an example of the activities that this group, together with heritage groups, started a few years ago. This is a sort of playful map of the market, as you can see here. It was in January 2008 that these different associations, like the Central and Western Concern Group, the Conservancy Association, Center for Heritage, and the SEE Network, published and distributed this fold-out pamphlet with the English title, Graham Street Market, Our Vital Living Past. But as you see in the Chinese, there is more a sort of emphasis on the idea of, we could say, sort of journey, sort of traveling through the market, and really emphasizing this idea with all these micro stories that are on the back of this fold-out. It's a kind of 12 pages pamphlet with a lot of micro stories of who are these street vendors, who are these operators in the market. And so this becomes a sort, and these groups were really organizing tours of the market, taking people around the market to see this example of the living past. And so this became a sort of very important civic and political statement of the market. And there have been a series of activities. There have been other, films, a lot of even school students have done made some documentaries on this market. So what we've seen, this is sort of timeline of the market. And if you're familiar with the area, you might have seen that the new Graham Street market has already appeared, that is able only to have something between 15 and 20 of the previous stall vendors. But it's a very interesting story, and in my paper, I'm trying to follow, in particular, the story of the market, and I can tell you more about this later. But this is the project of the Urban Renewal Authority for the market that was quite controversial at the beginning, that the community concern groups intervened, and there was an attempt to renegotiate the different stages of the transformation of the area. This is the beautiful rendition that is always giving a sense of the space that is much more beautiful in the rendition drawings than it becomes in the reality. And if you've been to the market, you might have seen that actually it has been a building site for almost 10 years. There have been a series of activities like the Double Reward in Graham Street Market, and a lot of celebratory events organized by the Urban Renewal Authority in somehow embracing this language of vital living past for obvious reasons. And these are pictures that give you a sense, if you haven't been to this area, of very different from the rendition drawings. drawings of what has been going on in the Graham Street area. And basically what will replace the market are these 4 high-rise luxury buildings, hotels and high-rises that it seems to be part of the history of Hong Kong as much as the history of many other cities. There have been a lot of work, for example, by graffiti artists, like Don't Kill the Market, if you read the Chinese in this area. There are a lot of micro stories that I'm trying to engage with in my work, and I can expand on that. So just to conclude, I think that it's interesting in a project on China ports, in Hong Kong, but probably in other cities in China as well, really to juxtapose these narratives of urban renewal and gentrification with narratives of living heritage. So really trying to look horizontally much more than vertically at how these experiences of space and living everyday life, the practices of everyday life, again from us and from the sector, are really embodied in the street markets. And so these markets are really giving us a sense of what I say, laboratories of collective experiences in the battle for public space, which is a big issue in Hong Kong. Also are really helping us to understand this issue that I was referring to at the beginning. What is the local identity of a colonial global city like Hong Kong? And at the same time are really helping us to understand from the bottom up, I would say, one of the biggest issues with Hong Kong. Hong Kong, as you certainly know, is one of the places in the world with the highest Gini coefficient, with the highest level of socio-economic inequality. So I think looking at the street markets and the experience of the vendors as much as the operators and the clients of the street markets is really allowing us to shed a new light on this kind of bottom-up practices of living heritage and living the space of the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marinelli. So I'll now hand over to the final paper on this panel before we have questions and answers. This is from Professor Celine Chan, who's going to talk about Hungry Ghosts Festivals, Hong Kong's economic memories and forgotten foods.
Thank you, Jeremy, for inviting me to this conference. So I'm going to share with you my recent work on Hungry Ghost Festival and how this is related to Hong Kong's pop history. And it's often a forgotten history. It was well known that the official pre-1997 Hong Kong stories are heavily biased toward the boom in capitalism and economic achievement with an apolitical perspective. The story always begins with the fact that Hong Kong was a small fishing village. Since 1842, Hong Kong began to develop as a free trading port. So it came together with colonial regime. People in Hong Kong learned about Hong Kong became an internationally famous entry port because of two reasons. Firstly, it is due to Victoria Harbour's deep sheltered waters and its strategic location on South China Sea. Secondly, it is due to the colonial trade policy. That's what all Hong Kong people learn from school. And that's it. That's all. right? Nothing else. And then we learned that in the 1950s and 60s, Hong Kong became a center of manufacturing industry. Later, Hong Kong has become a metropolitan city. This is apparently a narrative dominated by the colonial and capitalism regime. The existing economic narrative have oversimplified and asepticized the past. So more recently, of course, more scholars began to focus on narrating the Hong Kong stories through examining on cultural identification and providing other narratives. So in line with these scholars, I also argue that we should look at the petite receipt. Stories, small stories, constructed by real people with blood, sweat, and tears at various districts of Hong Kong. I suggest that voices of the subalterns and the subordinate working class at the port in the days of old should be heard to enhance our understanding of port history or heritage. These are the largely forgotten stories and important memories of the port. So my paper tried to uncover the sorrow stories of early migrants at the port of Hong Kong, the blood, tears, and struggles of the laborers in the old days, and add value to our understanding of port history and Hong Kong's economic narrative. So my paper tried to delineate how petite receipt stories of the subaltern could be heard through examining the origins of Hungry Ghost Festival in Hong Kong. So the petite receipt could be investigated through analyzing the collective memories embedded in the effort of organizing various Hungry Ghost Festival celebrations. According to Hapwa, collective memory is not a given, but a socially constructed notion. There are as many collective memories as there are groups and institutions in a society. Social class, families, associations, corporations, armies, trade unions all have distinctive memories that their members have constructed, often over a long period of time. So it is, of course, individuals who remember, not groups or institutions, but these individuals being located in a specific group, context, draw on that particular context to remember or recreate the past. So I argue that rituals and festivals provide context for different groups of people to remember the past. In particular, Hungry Ghost Festival provides a set environment for people to remember Hong Kong's port history, Hong Kong's past. So I try to review how Hong Kong as a migrant society has many stories or small stories or petite receipt. So below I will analyze how the origins of Hungry Ghost Festival reveal the memories of working class in the port. So my paper is based on information collected from anthropological fieldwork conducted during the period from 2012 to 2015. Observations were made in 56 different communities where the festival was held, and more than 300 in-depth interviews were conducted with participants, worshippers, NGO workers, government officials, and tourists. So Hong Kong's Victoria Harbour's deep sheltered water and strategic location on the South China Sea were instrumental in its development as a trading centre. It has attracted many cargo ships, creating the internationally well-known Hong Kong entreport. This reputation lies on the fact that many of the Hong Kong businesses are very good at cooperating with one another. The one most worth mentioning being the workers who work at the piers. According to my interview, there were many migrants, especially Chaozhou migrants, an ethnic group in Hong Kong, who work as coolies in piers or the surrounding areas. In reality, in the pier, you see a group of coolies, Cantonese coolies get together and Chaozhou coolies get together. They all are organized according to ethnic ties. But today I'm going to show you what the Chaozhou stories are like and how they are related to the development of ports and so on. So there were many Chaozhou migrants who worked as coolies in pier or the surrounding areas. In fact, the earliest Chaozhou settlers mostly lived near the pier in the western district of Hong Kong Island, Shenzhen. If you know the old name, 三角码头, 西灣, right? And along the piers at Tsim Sha Tsui, where you find Ocean Terminal there. Today is LV, used to be Coolie House, right? And so you find those piers and warehouses in Hong Kong Island, Causeway Bay, western part of Hong Kong, East Shenzhen's western district of Hong Kong Island, and also Tsim Sha Tsui in the Kowloon West. These Chaozhou people came to Hong Kong as refugees, as the majority of them are not well educated. They could only work as laborers. Many worked as coolies at the pier when they first came to Hong Kong, and they got jobs through personal connection, mainly kin ties and ethnic ties. So these coolies who worked at the piers were the people who first started the Hungry Ghost Festival in Hong Kong. The earliest Hungry Ghost Festival was held along the piers in Hong Kong, such as 西灣碼頭, the piers in Shenzhen, Tsim Sha Tsui, and even Causeway Bay. The earliest Hungry Ghost Festival that we know and have record was held in 1897 in Causeway Bay. We don't know when did the 西灣碼頭 started the Hungry Ghost Festival because they didn't keep the record. But there is a possibility that it was held even earlier than the Causeway Bay one, right? But there was no historical record at this moment. The origin of the Hungry Ghost Festival is related to hardship that the coolies encountered while working at the piers and the warehouses. And it's also related to ghost stories, urban legends. One story said that the ghosts were workers who once worked in the warehouse but were crushed to death by huge rice sacks which pile up to several meters high. Right? That was about the ghost story in Causeway Bay, where you find warehouses owned by Jardine. So there was another version of the ghost story, said that the managers at the Jardine warehouse saw a black shadow at the warehouse along Patterson Street. At first, they thought that it was a thief, and they demanded the head coolies to identify and capture the thief. The head coolies insisted that there was no thief and claimed that the black shadow was their good brother, who unfortunately died in an accident during work. So to commemorate fellow kinsman, colleague, and fellow of same ethnic group who died in these work accidents, these coolies decided to conduct elaborated rituals during Hungry Ghost Festival, which were a ritual practiced way back in their hometown in Chaozhou. But in Hong Kong, when they performed the ritual, they commemorated these bachelor fellow workers who died from industrial accident or misfortune. It was believed that these people would become vicious ghosts if they were not properly worshipped after death. The Hungry Ghost Festival was therefore meant to pacify those who died due to misfortune and to ensure peace and order would prevail in the local community. At the same time, the festival was also an occasion for the migrants to perform worship to ancestors, as they were unable in those days to return home to sweep the tombs of the ancestors. In fact, Hungry Ghost Festival originated historically from Buddhism in India. In China, it was also called Yulan Peng. And the story of how Mu Lian saved his mother from punishment in hell through ritual chanting is widely known today. The festival has been practiced since 538 AD with Buddhist rituals established by the emperor in commemoration of ancestors. So it combines with Confucianism, right? In other words, filial piety in Confucianism has been highlighted through the ritual practices of the aristocracy at the Hungry Ghost Festival in those days. Emperors in subsequent dynasties also follow these practices. Since the Tang and the Song dynasty, 601 18 AD, the story of how Mu Lian staged his mother has been further popularized through performances in local operas. So from the Song dynasty, 960 AD onwards, Taoist ritual have also been incorporated into practices at the Hungry Ghost Festival. The festival subsequently gained popularity among the commoners who were Taoist worshippers. The meaning of the festival has been expanded from venerating ancestors to commemorating those who lost their innocent life to misfortunes. Meanwhile, people invented practices where small boats with lit candles were released into the river and the ship would supposedly float to the river of hell, a place where all spirits of the dead rest. So apparently, the candles would illuminate the darkness of the river, therefore leading the spirits with this light and release their souls from purgatory. So similarly, in Hong Kong, when these coolies first started Hungry Ghost Festival, they followed these rituals, the Buddhist ritual. They conducted in Buddhist ritual, and also it was meant primarily for honoring those who die of accidents and also ancestors, right? If you look at the history, oral history of these coolie workers, we found that the origins of the Buddhist Samgok Matao in Shangwan, Hungry Ghost Festival, is also due to the contribution of the coolies. Although the establishment is unknown, it was clear that there were numerous coolies who worked at the Samgok Matao in Shangwan, Western District, long before the Japanese occupation. Coolies had to move heavy weight from ships to land. This involved walking on a narrow strip of wood while balancing a heavy weight on their shoulders, an example of being a sack of rice, 100 Chinese gun, right? Around 50 kilograms. The only bridge that connected the land and the watercraft was a narrow strip of wood. Due to the unstable and unsafe condition of the bridge, one wrong move could cause the coolies to fall into the sea. Accident occurred occasionally when coolies lost their balance midway and consequently fell into the sea and drowned. So this has caused many unfortunate coolies severe injuries and even death after falling into the sea. So the coolies decided to begin organizing Hungry Ghost Festival to pacify those who die from such accident. And the activities was supported financially not only by the coolies but also the shopkeepers who ran the rice shops, medical hall, and groceries in the neighborhood, right? For street market in the earlier days. In Kowloon Peninsula, we also found many migrants who worked as coolies in Tsim Sha Tsui. Well, Tsim Sha Tsui was a railway station, in addition to a pier, right? So Hoi Fong Street in Tsim Sha Tsui was filled with newly constructed coolie houses. And so Tsim Sha Tsui Pier was both a gathering site and a working place for coolies. Many of them were from Chaozhou as they landed their jobs through the introduction of kins and friends from the same ethnic group. When these coolies discovered that grand activities was being held at the Hungry Ghost Festival on the other side of the harbor in Causeway Bay and Shangwan, they decided to conduct their rituals as well, a traditional religious activity which they have been conducting at their hometown. So in all these stories, organized activities were meant to send off the wandering spirit. Wandering spirits were referred to those who die accidentally during work or during the process of migrating to Hong Kong, swimming to Hong Kong. These tragic memories are significantly different from the conventional Hong Kong narratives, which primarily focus on the laissez-faire system and the successful narrative. Indeed, Hungry Ghost Festival was conducted to comfort the wandering spirit of those who died in the accident and who sacrificed their life while contributing to the success of Hong Kong's economy. More importantly, different origins at origins of Hungry Ghost Festival also reveal the importance of fraternal ties and ethnic bonds of coolies in the early migrant societies. When the coolie first started the worship, they just set up the altar on the street while providing a mat on the floor for worshippers to pray. Then they invited Buddhist priests to conduct the rituals. Soon more and more people joined the ritual practices, and they started to rent lorries to help with that. They tried to use several adjacent lorries as platforms, so elaborated worship could be performed. Then, as worshippers increased yet further, the ritual celebration would move to public park. Temporary praying hall were set up by using bamboo scaffolding structure. You can see it in public park in Lunar July. Although they were initially the Hungry Ghost Festival were initially organized by the coolies along the pier. But sooner or later, when these coolies moved to different parts of Hong Kong, they spread those practices in different parts of Hong Kong. So if you track down the migration trajectories of these Chaozhou migrants in Hong Kong, you could see how they brought this Hungry Ghost Festival to different parts of Hong Kong. So, the Chaozhou Hungry Ghost Festival has become an intangible cultural heritage in 2001. In fact, a Chinese national intangible cultural heritage. So what is intangible cultural heritage? Why these things created by the coolies who work near the pier became this ICH? According to UNESCO's definition, it includes traditions or living expressions inherited from our ancestors and passed on to our descendants, such as oral traditions, stories, legends, performing arts, social practices, rituals, festive events, knowledge and practices concerning nature and the universe, or the knowledge and skills to produce traditional crafts. It was actually a pro-China organization, the Federation of Hong Kong Chaozhou Community Organization, assumed leadership in putting up the application for the Chaozhou Hungry Ghost Festival as Hong Kong's ICH, as well as Chinese national ICH. The government, the Hong Kong government received the application and considered the proposal, and the expert panel considered the following factors. Number of operators of the festival, a huge number, right? And has community support. Cultural continuity and support by younger generations. Uniqueness to Hong Kong, because during Cultural Revolution, these rituals were banned in mainland China. Of course, revival began, but still very different. So Hong Kong preserved quite a bit of traditional Chinese rituals and so on. So historicity, communal relations. So the panel agreed that the festival is a representative illustration of Hong Kong culture with significant historical and communal value, and approved its application as ICH. So there's a celebration banquet. This is Hungry Ghost Festival in Shangwan. Today's picture, you can see this Fa Pai. And this one is in Causeway Bay. Right. So these are the gods. Right. They pray to the gods. This one, the pot, symbolizes God. In Chaozhou rituals, you don't see a statue. Okay, so this is the hall for ritual performance. these are the offerings to ghosts. So these are the elements of intangible cultural heritage, always in triangle, because it symbolizes mountain. That means lots of food for the ghost. Mountains, right? So no need to hurry, they all have enough. So hall for the Chaozhou opera. So concluding reflections. The long forgotten voices of the ordinary people or the marginalized group should be encouraged to be heard. Oral histories of the workers and the peers should be recorded and preserved. Their social, cultural, and religious life are an indispensable part of Hong Kong history. These are petite receipts which enrich our understanding of port heritage as well as the economic life of early migrants in Hong Kong. And secondly, studying, conserving, and exhibiting ICH at the piers is an area deserving more attention. And finally, is a question. The importance of ethnic ties and fraternal connection of these workers deserve further analysis. Is this a common experience for port workers in different parts of the world, or merely a distinctive feature of Hong Kong as a migrant society? Thank you.
Fascinating stuff, actually, and there's a lot that draws all three papers together in a way, not just the fact that it's a Hong Kong focus, there's a lot of other things looking at sort of democratization of heritage and all that kind of thing. Do you want to all sit on here, because we've got half an hour for questions and answers and this general discussion, and I imagine there are quite a few questions, so perhaps if there are any questions, first of all, to specific speakers or indeed to all three. Yes,
thank you very much for the panel members. Very interesting presentations. I have a question regarding Selena. It's really interesting to look into the port workers, actually. And you said you conducted more than 100 interviews. And during the interview, did you understand the cultural linkage between their home in Chaozhou and here, and obviously it carries on. Did you find people talking about the resistance? Because I think the this festival provide an excellent opportunity for them to, obviously were united, to organize resistance, kind of workers' movement. Did you find this during your study? And also another question is, and you mentioned that this festival was in lunar July, in the summer, and does it have any link with the Qingming festival, which is the ancestor worshipping occasion in China, and a lot of food present to ancestors to make sure they are not tempted?
Thank you for your question, and very interesting. First of all, it's linkage with home resistance. I'm afraid that there's no resistance, only it's a complicated story. First of all, these Chaozhou people, of course, keep going home from time to time, especially, well, actually, these are the Chaozhou migrants who came to Hong Kong at different time or different decades, right? Some came 50s, 40s, 30s, 60s, and 70s. And they continue to go back home from time to time. And they, I would say, today, well, maybe in the early 1980s, shortly after the market reform, when the Chaozhou people started reviving their local religious activities, these Hong Kongers played some kind of roles in telling them what they do in Hong Kong. But today, this is the other way around, because it has been more than 20 years since the market reform. Religious revival in Chaozhou is quite a scene, and the Hungry Ghost Festival at their hometown was held in elaborated manners. So today, the Hong Kong people would order some kind of paper offerings from Chaozhou because it's cheaper, it's nicer in kind of design. So for the ritual, you need a lot of paper offerings or decorative or things like the clothes of the god and so on. And they order, most of them order from mainland China. Two reasons. First of all, it's cheaper. Secondly, is in Hong Kong there are not many people who can make these kind of things. So that's the thing. And also, secondly, one of the important things for the ritual is that you need ritual specialists. And the important thing for Chaozhou Hungry Ghost Festival is that the ritual will be performed in Chaozhou dialect. So we've got the young people who can speak the Chaozhou dialect and chant in Chaozhou dialect. So you often find them having some Chaozhou people coming over to participate in the ritual performance. That's one thing. And the last thing is the opera. As I said, during the elaborated performance of the Hungry Ghost Festival, they will have temporary altars, temporary hall set up for opera performance. And for opera performance, they also have to sing Chaozhou opera. The name of the opera is based in Hong Kong, but the people who can sing is from Chaozhou. So again, you see the linkages with Chaozhou is close, okay? And finally, the other thing is why this Chaozhou Hungry Ghost Festival has become intangible cultural heritage. As I mentioned, it was a pro-China Chaozhou organization who took the initiative to apply for this. Where did they get this idea? They heard it from mainland China. They were very close to their business partner in their hometown in Chaozhou, and the officers in Cultural Bureau in Chaozhou were very close to them. And there was also some reason like, you know, this is a good religious activity which can, because it has huge communal support. And the Chinese government want to mobilize more people from grassroots. So the religious activities or religious activity like Chaozhou Hungry Ghost Festival has been seen by the Chinese government as a very good base for mobilization of ordinary folks. So they hinted that to the Chaozhou merchants who have lots of investment in Chaozhou and have good relationship with government officials in Chaozhou and Hong Kong as well. And so these people took the initiative and put up this application. So this shows the connection between Hong Kong and Chaozhou is very close and not resisting. They are cooperating with each other happily so far.
I have a question for Maurizio. I was really interested in your discussion of the markets as locations for social mobility. And one of the things I was interested in was two things. One is the contemporary attempt to historicize the market or give in part on it. It obviously is a historical activity and it's important in that respect, but to sort of up the ante of its tweeness historically. And the second was that I'm aware of markets as sort of as locations for the formation of collective identity, but I haven't quite heard before about the microtransactions that occur at market level like that, forming the basis for social regeneration and mobility. And I wondered if you could maybe expand on that a bit, because I never sort of connected before microtransactions and high volume and that things occur, high volume transactions like that as a bridge or as a pathway or platform for social mobility, but rather just as a notion of collective identity. And that's an interesting thing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. That is actually something that I'm very interested in because in some of the micro stories in the pamphlet that I was showing, for example, there is a very interesting example of sort of globalization from below and also sustainability and what, as an historian, I'm also interested in the history from below, as Celine, I think in that paper was also touching on this idea of the micro stories that we can see. And for example, this the kind of focus on one of the stores in Grand Street Market is really showing, well, there is a little bit of a micro story of how, you know, the two store vendors met and then they started a family, but they also started basically selling eggs actually. And they basically sell eggs not only locally but also globally, starting from this micro place. Another example, for example, could be the Panjai market in Shanshui-Po. That is the fabric market. It's a fabric market. It's been very, very controversial. There has been a public audience with the LECCO last month, actually, with the Panjai operators in the Panjai market, because it started when they opened the Shanshui-Po tube station. They relocated them to this area 40 years ago. And then now they want to relocate them again because they want to build, the URA wants to build some new buildings in that area, so they want to relocate them under the flyover in the Shanshui-Po area where actually there are homeless people, and so it's a very complicated process. But basically, if you look at, for example, the fabric vendors in Panjai, they are really working with the community. A lot of students go there because it's much cheaper to go to the Panjai market to buy fabric, and then a lot of local teachers and school students in that area are going to this market and work together actually with the vendors to create performances or to create final year activities. And there is, and so in this sense, the street markets, you use the word of social mobility, but I think probably some of the work that has been done, not only by myself, but also by other scholars on Hong Kong, is really talking about social capital, these markets as spaces of, as places of social capital. And in terms of the kind of, what interests me here is really another idea, if you want, of sustainability that is more socially based, and another idea of prosperity, you know, which is a big macro narrative of prosperity that is economic based. What I think is interesting to look at the stories, as Selina was doing also in that paper, and also what we are trying to do here in terms of maritime heritage. I mean, really looking at heritage as something that is very alive, not something that is, something that is dead, basically. And in this sense, I think that, looking at the street markets gives us an opportunity, as I said, of looking at this social dimension.
Can I say it from the point of view of the Hong Kong Maritime Museum? I'm on the board of Hong Kong Maritime Museum. I'm also a grandfather. As a grandfather, my grandfather's duties take me to two markets on a regular basis, to both the Grand Street Market as well as the Wan Chai Market. Now, what the markets do is because it's all open and because they have stores, therefore they don't pay high rent. And regularly people go every day. And it is a social phenomenon as opposed to going to dairy farm or park and shop. In park and shop, you take it from the store, from the shelves, and it's wholly impersonal, and the staff change the cashier. You don't engage in conversation. But if you go back to the market every day, you engage in conversation both with the vendor, the store vendors, as well with your fellow shoppers. It's a wholly different phenomenon. The failure of a Hong Kong society is that we have failed from personal relationship to impersonal. And that includes our children as well as our grandchildren. Because once they are used to the modern lifestyle, they have no idea of the beauty of personal relationship. Now, as a Hong Kong Maritime Museum, I have been pushing, and I think the board has recently authorized, putting forward oral history. But oral history traditionally has been concentrated on the top, the famous names, whether it is governors or captains of industry. Those are fine. But the people, ordinary people, who do ordinary interesting things, which provide our cultural heritage, is to be reminded. So I'm very interested in pushing forward, both on the market side, as well as the early coolies. Because early coolies will tell the story about how Hong Kong used to operate, how a large part of our population worked in the shipping industry, and which is totally transformed by modern society, and bring them back to the area of Hong Kong on the waterfront, not far away from Grand Street. The whole of that area would be a fit area for oral history, whether it is port workers or market or the offices and outside. And that, I hope, is to bring people like you, the professionals, to work with us at the museum, to create a storytelling about Hong Kong's maritime past, which is more meaningful, both to local visitors as well as to overseas visitors. So I'd like to have your reaction as to whether you think this is a good thing or not.
Panel as a whole.
Yes, panel as a whole.
All of these microphones on.
Yes, I think this is a good idea and it's very important. As I said, it was largely forgotten. Ordinary people's voices have been forgotten in our official history. So it's time to dig up those memories before these old people were gone. Not only the coolies that I'm talking about today, but there were many people who worked along on the sea, like barges. They work on the barges, and they also have special association, and they could also tell us some stories, like working in the warehouses in Yau Ma Tei. Yau Ma Tei is a very good area, I think, and because up till now, these people are still working, but they moved to Dai Kok Zhui, so-called New Yau Ma Tei here, right? There are some professional associations organized by these people. I think they are very keen on preserving these stories as well. Many of the members in these organizations are ready to talk to people, but just no one approached them. So I think it would be nice if the museum could take the leadership in approaching them to do some interviews, to record the stories before these stories would go on.
This is good question. And when we are interviewing some of the villages, or we are doing some history or interviews to the villages in the outer island, like the Kolawan and Thap Mun. Yes, we talking to the people living there, and maybe they are already living there for many years, like 50 years, or the chef already there maybe 60 years, 70 years, and some of the history they're talking about the stories to us, and some of them is not regular, it's not right on that. So it's good to talk to them and know more about their history. And if we are not taking down the oral history from all these peoples, and part of this history maybe just vanish, no more. And it's good to have it record and properly, and let more people or our youngsters to know about the history of Hong Kong. Yes.
Thank you so much, because you made some very interesting points in terms terms of how in the end oral history has a social dimension and also a cultural dimension, and is really important. As I was saying before, how this idea of looking at history from the top, or looking at history from below, and really adding micro stories that can shed a different light on the macro narrative that in the other papers we have seen needs definitely to be deconstructed and complemented by these stories. So it would be great if the museum wanted to. And I think that the other element that I found listening to the other papers and all your questions is really how they are interconnected. The stories of the coolies are interconnected with the formation. I mean, street hawking and coolies were the jobs for those who were at the very base of this kind of ladder in terms of moving from the mainland and started trying to make a living life for themselves in Hong Kong. And so in this sense it's really allowing us to see a different dimension as opposed to these ways of writing history from above.
I have a question for Dr. Chen and then a question for Mr. Chen. Dr. Chen, at the end of your presentation, you raised the question of whether the rituals such as the Henry Quaker's festival to commemorate coolies in Hong Kong is universal in port cities around the world, or is it in kind of unique? So did you have an answer? Do you find it similar to any other rituals around the world? Or is it quite unique in Hong Kong? And for Mr. Chen, you mentioned there's a need to develop a territory-wide survey of underwater cultural heritage in Hong Kong. I just wonder how far are we getting there? I have an impression that our government is not very active in doing this kind of job, but please correct me if I'm wrong. So how far are we getting there, and are there any difficulties ahead? Thank you.
To be honest, I have no answer because I have not done any comparative studies yet. But I think it would be nice to see what happened in Rotterdam, in Japan, Australia. There was always a saying that the Chinese always like to utilize kin network and ethnic ties in getting things done, from job to marriage to everything. But it's just a myth. When you are looking for jobs in a specialized area, you are talking about network anyway. So I just want to see like working in a port or in a specialized field, shipping industries and so on. Is it the same everywhere? You find that people are relying on kin ties or ethnic ties, or the other way is that these people are the lower class, so-called working class people. They don't have many other social capital. And kin ties and ethnic ties are the only social capital that they have. And would this be a common experience for people in other parts or people who work in other parts of the world?
For the database, we only have approximately 300 sites. That is mainly the website. We got data from the Hydrographic Office in the UK. It's similar, around the same as the Hong Kong Hydrographic Office under the Maritime Department of Hong Kong. And those site or record is mainly for the website, is for navigation, is for safety of the navigation. But it is not it is not for the underwater heritage. We base on that, it is some of the maybe significant website, and we may try to survey on it. And we have added some of the underwater heritage site like the stone lions or ceramic site or the cannon site. That is very important for the underwater heritage, so we add to that. But for the comprehensive survey in Hong Kong water, I think the hydrographic office may have some of it, but not the whole Hong Kong water. Because we may heard about a lot of story about the shipwreck during the transport or during the Silk Road, Maritime Silk Road, because it used to be a very busy transportation. One of the port, Hong Kong is one of the port along the Maritime Silk Road, and there should be a lot of maybe there's a lot of wreck during this transportation because of the accident or typhoon or whatever, or there's some others the lost goods or during the transport, or they just dump it during the smuggling or during the war between the rival of the Qing dynasty or older dynasty, Song dynasty, and there's a lot of war, and also in the World War II there should be a lot of wreck in maybe Victoria Harbour, or when they are going away to escape. So it is very important we have a full survey in Hong Kong water, and we are still proposing to the government or Marine Department to see whether it is possible to have a full survey to see how many significant sites in underwater we still haven't found, because we only have a piece by piece from the report from the divers or fishermen or local operators, and there's maybe a lot to know. Yes, and also we try to get some oral history from outer island, like the fishermen or the villages. Yeah.
We have time for one more question. Maybe from someone who hasn't asked one.
It's more a comment, really. On the issue of surveys, there is actually a submission on our website saying that encouraging the government to spend $3 million to survey basically underwater heritage hotspots. I mean, it's basic planning, and it wasn't taken up. And I suppose I was just interested in the speakers making any observations about overarching heritage architecture, because it seems to me in Hong Kong there's a lot of people doing a lot of things, but even in a database sense, none of it's linked up. So there's people doing oral histories, there's people doing photographic research, but overall there's very little investment in a sort of kind of a database approach that you get in other countries. So I just wondered if anyone had any thoughts on that issue of trying to join the dots across Hong Kong.
It is what the museum proposing to the government, and because we are the museum and we looking at the situation now in Hong Kong, the government have put a lot of money, like they are doing the building heritage record or preservation or conservation, and also they have doing some on the reef check, like it's already maybe 30 years. Every year they have doing the record for the reef in Hong Kong water, and they haven't do anything on the underwater heritage. So maybe it's time for them to take a look on that and see maybe they have some other programs to starting to have doing some of the record on the underwater heritage.
Just checking. Tea and coffee was ready. It is. We'll have one more question and then we'll take a break for tea and coffee.
Very briefly, not question just for Dr. Chen. And I don't have an answer to your question either, but however, and more than 10 years ago we had studied jointly with two professors from Shanghai University, which looked into the seafarers or the Shanghai seafarers who stayed in Liverpool after World War II. Because of the war, about 100,000 so-called Shanghai seafarers, they were actually Chinese seafarers from everywhere, and recruited maybe from Shanghai, but was exported from Hong Kong, and stayed over in Liverpool after, because of the war and during the war. And it was an oral history study. We didn't find the similar festival there, but if we get together, there's a lot of social gathering. For instance,
up to the late 90s when we were doing the oral history there, they still met up over the weekend, every weekend, in the supermarket area and shopping mall area, meeting up, and so quite tightly connected. So it's not a festival, but they were together.
Can I just suggest we're right on time, but I know there's a few more questions that people have. Maybe we can continue our discussion of the tea and coffee. I must say the tea and coffee it's only for presenters or people who are associated with the museum, so board members. But there is a cafe upstairs, I understand. And we're going to have a break for about 15 minutes, and we'll start again at about 11:05. Can I just, everyone thank our two panelists? Thank you very much. So we'll be back in